to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
We're back with episode 71 of the Leo Training Podcast. And this week, my guest is Jon Engum. In this interview, Jon and I sit down and we discuss flexible steel. What is flexible steel, you might ask? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about that. Flexible steel was created by Jon Engum and is a flexibility and mobility system. System is the key word here, that utilizes some key principles. Those principles are formed around the 3 S's, which are using your strength, creating space, and spreading the load throughout your body. Now, we'll be talking about those 3 principles in depth throughout the interview. But let me tell you a little bit more about Jon before we roll to the interview. Jon Engum is a 7th Dan Kukkiwon certified Taekwondo Grandmaster and holds master rank in Hapkido and Kumdo. He is the author of Flexible Steel, creator and chief instructor of the Flexible Steel System, owner of Jon Engum's Extreme Training, Engum's Academy of Taekwondo, and a StrongFirst Master Instructor who teaches workshops, courses, and certifications worldwide. So, other topics that we'll be discussing in this interview that are of key interest are I share my experience after attending the seminar and how I used some of the skills learned that weekend to instantly improve my strength during a training session. And you'll hear about that in full detail during the interview. As well as we discuss some of the bodyweight skills in StrongFirst and how they can have good carryover into some of the kettlebell lifts, specifically the handstand pushup into the kettlebell military press. So without further ado, let's roll to episode 71 with Jon Engum, Flexible Steel. I'm very pleased and honored to welcome Master StrongFirst Instructor and founder of Flexible Steel, Jon Engum, to the Leo Training Podcast. Jon, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on.
Thank you for having me, Joe. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, me too. I appreciate you doing this a second time around for some life circumstances that happened. But it'll be great to share your experience and wisdom with the StrongFirst and martial arts communities.
Joe, the first one we did was so awesome. The people should have heard it. I mean, it was amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So
I don't know if we can reproduce that.
No, I think we'll come close though. We'll give them a lot of good actionable tips and advice to put into their own training and practice for sure. So before we launch into our topics, for those in the audience that aren't familiar with you, why don't you take a couple minutes and introduce yourself and let them know who you are and kind of your background and where you're located.
Yeah. Well, I'm headquartered out of Minnesota. My background is in Korean martial arts. I started training when I was 6 years old, and I've been with the same master, this whole time. Over 40 years, which is crazy.
Wow.
My background's in Taekwondo, Hapkido, and Kumdo. Kumdo is like Korean fencing, similar to Kendo. Been teaching in my gyms since 91. I first opened in 1991, and been rolling ever since.
Very cool. And how did you get involved with kettlebells?
Through flexibility training, actually. I was competing really, really heavily in my 20s, and I had a full-time martial arts school. But we had no idea of, how to program a training cycle or even treat ourselves like athletes. We were fighters, and, an example of our training cycle was day 1 was really hard training. Day 2 was even harder training. Day 3 was damn hard training. Day 4 was even harder. Then we usually travel, fight in a tournament on Saturday. Sunday, we'd try to heal up so we were ready to face Monday. And living like that for several years, you kind of become like an old rodeo cowboy going from one rodeo to the next. And it's hard on the body. So I was aging well before my time. We would have students come into the school as white belts that were naturally more flexible and mobile than me, their master. And it was really hard to take that. It was shameful. So I vowed to go out and do my best and try to reverse that. And since I had a martial arts school, I didn't have a regular 9-to-5 job. I was able to go and study with any flexibility guru I could find. It didn't matter. I've always been under the theory that if you can go to a workshop or a certification and learn just one thing, it's worth the time and travel. And that's what I did. I traveled around and I tried to find the secret to flexibility. And I'd go someplace and they'd say, do this and this for 6 or 8 months. And, you'll get a little bit more flexible. And yeah, that worked, but it was too slow. And by accident, I ran into this Russian guy named Pavel Satsulin when he was doing like real low price community ed style programs, a stretching seminar for like $40. But the promises were just too good to be true. I mean, it was crazy. There's no way. But again, if I can learn one thing, it was worth doing it. So I went there and he's like, John, do this and this and this and you'll have the splits. And I did it that day. And he said, if you like this, you should try kettlebells. And the rest is history.
Awesome. So you spent a lot of time, and as you kind of just told the background story, I mean, that was kind of the impetus for you creating Flexible Steel, is putting together this system, this program, that provides really instantaneous changes and benefits to the people that practice it.
Yeah, definitely. I put into the Flexible Steel program all these different pieces of the puzzle that I learned from several different sources and tried to streamline it and systemize it so that it was easy to teach to other people. And the results are pretty cool. At Flexible Steel, we want to be flexible, but not to the detriment of our strength. And we want to be strong, but not to the detriment of our flexibility. So we want to have this perfect match of strength and flexibility at the same time. Who would you rather be? The power lifter that can deadlift a house, but he can't bend over and tie his own shoes? Or do you want to be the guy that can tie himself into these amazing knots, but, the wind will blow him over. He has no strength. No, you want both pieces of the puzzle. You want to be Flexible Steel, strong and flexible at the same time. And that is the true meaning of health, really. Yeah, and I had the pleasure of attending the seminar at the beginning of March, and it was phenomenal. I was blown away. I commented to a couple of people after that weekend. You go to workshops that are physical in nature, and usually by the end of the day or the end of the weekend, you're pretty tired, you're fatigued, you're beat up. But with this one, I felt better and better throughout the day, and then by the end of the day, I felt my best. And you can't say that with a lot of workshops that you're going to that are training related or physical in nature. No, that's for sure. That's for sure. The cool thing also about Flexible Steel, and you experienced it, is when the people come in the morning, we take a baseline of several different movements, and we don't just have their partner look at them. We actually take photos of them, right? And then throughout the day, they go back and test this, and they can go back on their phone and actually see these huge improvements in their movement, in their flexibility, and in their strength. So it's kind of cool. It's a unique thing. Yes, and I still have some of those on my phone from that workshop that weekend and stuff. So it's amazing to look at the changes that that are happening just over the course of 8 hours, like huge gains. And we had some people that weekend that we saw get the splits, for the first time. And then
I think it's worth mentioning too is I had that great experience. Came off that weekend doing my training right now for the StrongFirst Level 2, and so Monday was heavy pressing day for me doing singles. And so the previous week I had hit 6 reps on my right arm and 4 reps on my left arm. And so the only changes I made to my routine during the session were I did the flexible steel mobility sequence at the very beginning, and then in between each rep, I was doing a power stretching, specifically geared towards overhead mobility or thoracic mobility, and increasing that flexibility and that range of motion. And then I would do some breathing in between and do my next rep. And that week, 10 reps on the right, 10 reps on the left.
Wow.
Yeah. Huge change, and felt great. The bell was just flying up on both sides. So yeah, that was to me, that was, I felt phenomenal after the weekend, but having it and putting it into practice and seeing some really instantaneous benefits to the strength side, that was huge.
Well, that's so cool, Joe. A lot of people have commented over the years we've been doing it is that flexible steel kind of gives them the missing piece.
Yeah.
Missing piece of the puzzle. Granville Mares in Toronto is one of the just recently made StrongFirst team leader. He's amazingly strong. He came to the flexible steel certification, and we took a baseline on his press. Well, his baseline was 14 repetitions with a 48 kilogram kettlebell. We call it the beast, right? Now, Granville has some trouble with his elbows. His elbows have never locked out on him, but it's pretty close. So he presses this thing for 14 times. Super strong guy. We then took him and did some flexible steel work on the shoulders. We took him through the same kind of chapter that you went through and retested him, I think maybe 4 or 5 minutes after his baseline, and he got 16 presses.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. So it's not just helping you to increase the strength, but that's also, you could also point to the fact that's very rapid recovery.
Yeah, for sure. The really cool thing about it is it just gives you enjoyment it gives you enjoyment of your movements again. Yes.
Definitely you feel quite energized after doing any of the power stretching sequences. And one of the other things that I really thought was cool, the part at the beginning where you talk about the baselines, I love how you have, for a full flexion one, you have the toe touch, but for progressing that, you have the hanging leg raise. And it didn't really dawn on me until I was reading through the manual and looking at it. That's a fantastic example of that balance between flexibility and strength right there. You're usually missing one or the other if you can't do that. So that's a great baseline test and something to really work towards. So that's also something kind of on the accessory that I'm working towards that will also, I think, help with the press. But that's just a phenomenal abdominal exercise as well.
Yeah, well, it's a great movement to test that full body flexion because, for the people that don't know what it is, you're hanging with straight elbows from a pull-up bar, and then without using momentum, you lift your straight legs up and you try to touch the bar with either your shins or your insteps without your head going backwards. So it's not like you're throwing your head back and trying to do a front lever. And it's simply a great test because if your feet don't reach the bar, you're either not flexible enough or you're not strong enough or a combination of both. It's kind of like the best body composition test is a pull-up,
Right.
Either you're too weak to do a pull-up or you're too heavy, and you can get results by burning the end of both candles. You lose a little bit of weight, you gain a little bit of strength, and all of a sudden your pull-up numbers are going up.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So that was really kind of eye-opening, because I was like, oh, wow. I was like, there's some things that I can really do here that can also be, very good baseline assessments for some, higher level students as well. So it kind of just the shift in perspective from kind of a normal, toe touch, having that flexibility, on both feet, and then looking towards a higher level strength movement. I thought that was great. So one of the other things I wanted to discuss is, I would love to get some clear definitions on kind of the differences between mobility and flexibility, because those terms are sometimes used interchangeably and can be confused. So I was hoping that you could kind of clear that up for the audience.
Well, the reason there's no cut line in there is because they cross the line quite a bit. It's not black and white. It's gray. Generally speaking, a mobility drill is something that's easy, some rotations, like joint rotations, that takes your joints through a full range of motion under muscular power. And flexibility, you're trying to increase the length of the muscle, not so much physically lengthening it, but getting it to relax and allowing the length that it already has to happen. But they kind of cross paths quite a bit.
Sure. Yeah. They're not mutually exclusive. They definitely, work together. But I think that was kind of important to throw that in there, because like I said, they can often be used interchangeably, and while they complement each other, they're not the same thing.
No, and they don't have the same purposes. So that might be a really good way to define them. Mobility drills should make you prepared for more high-level physical activity. So like movement prep. They don't wear you out. They don't tire you out. Mm-hmm. They don't affect your nervous system quite as much. They don't throw off your coordination. We're power stretching. Now we're doing like isometric stretching that would happen after a training session. And when you're done, you're cooked,
Right.
It's negatively affect. You would never do isometric splits and then try to deadlift. Right. It would negatively affect your tonnage there for sure. So that might be a good way to define them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's another important point you just made too, is, reiterating how good I felt throughout the day, but not to say that we weren't, really focused and working. A lot of the flexibility work is very central nervous system intensive. Three principles, strength, spreading the load, and creating space. And so, kind of, you said that at the beginning of the day, you're like, yeah, that's basically the entire, seminar for the day in the first 15 minutes. We're just going to apply it to each of the different, stretches and mobility drills, but that's what we're going to be kind of going back to throughout the day. And, sure enough, that's what we were driving home.
Yeah, for sure. Over and over and over again. I mean, the secret, if there's a secret, is right there. The tricky part is how to apply it, right. And that's what we spent the day learning. How to apply that to a high kick, how to apply it to your bench press stance, how to apply it to, your squat or whatever you want to do, a back bridge. It doesn't really matter. The principles are universal. It's just, how do we do this? And that's where that depth of experience comes in.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that was good. We went through a lot of the different progressions, and then I thought it was also very valuable in getting, your thoughts on how we can apply it into, training or different situations. Like you said, for the, kicks for a fighter or martial artist who might want that kind of flexibility.
And not only flexibility, I don't know if you remember, we put the one guy that was a kicker there through some things, and we actually made him hit harder.
Yes. Yeah, and we got there was one guy who had never touched his toes before that day, and by the end of the day, you had him bringing his knuckles down to his toes.
Right. And I didn't collect on the bet yet.
Yeah, you got to make sure you follow up with them. That's right.
Sure. No, that's really exciting. It is.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to teach people this stuff and just make whatever they want to do better.
Yes. Absolutely.
I'm excited, Joe. We just got the raw footage from the first Flexible Steel DVD, which is pretty cool.
Excellent.
Shot in Italy. We have a real international cast. We have an Italian, obviously. Angelica from Poland is in it. Luca from Canada is in it. And Laura Caligari from Italy, and myself. So a lot of different countries came together to put that out, and should be available soon.
Oh, outstanding! Very cool. So we'll make sure we, if it's published by the time the episode's out, we'll make sure to include a link to that in the show notes for the audience.
Cool.
Awesome.
Cool. What I did is I took there's 4 chapters to this program, and I made it for the average person, because they're the ones that need this stuff, you know?
Right.
So there's not going to be, we're not doing any crazy contortionist things in there. It's things that are going to benefit the average gym goer, you know, or the soccer mom, the person that wants to be able to move better and stronger. And I think that's where we need to start. Yeah,
absolutely. Or the desk jockey who's at their desk for 8 to 10 hours a day, untying the chair.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you want to touch on a little bit of the concept of the 4 knots?
Sure. We spend a lot of time in flexible steel working on the shoulders and the hips. And actually Mark Chang is the one that brought up the terminology of 4 knots. And when I first heard it, it made sense. You know, the shoulders tie your arms to your body, and your hips tie your legs to your body. And okay, we have 4 knots here. And when I talked to Doc, he's like, yeah, but it goes deeper than that. You know, think about your shoe, the knot in your shoe. If your shoe knot is too tight, you can't get your shoe off, which means it's dysfunctional. On the other hand, if the knot's too loose, your shoe keeps coming off all the time, and that's not proper either. We want to have this bounce. We want to have this nice bounce. Again, flexible steel is all about bounce. And I'm not talking about a bounce being bounced, but just equal proportions of what we need. So we spend an awful lot of time on the shoulders and the hips, getting them into balance and treating you as a whole human being, not various body parts. Because that's how you move, you know. When you're doing some kind of athletic maneuver, you don't think, okay, I need to use this muscle and that muscle and this muscle, and this is a sequence I have to do it. The package just happens, right?
Right.
And it happens fast. You can't think about it. It has to be, reflexive. So we need to be able to have that walking around bounce with us all the time. Again, I'm not talking about a tightrope, but I'm just talking about flexibility and strength and grace and movement.
Yeah, and that was one of the other things too. It was very kind of revealing throughout the day, like how much not only more open my body felt, but like the ease with which I could move continued to improve. Like it was like I felt like I was like not only more efficient, but the amount of energy I had to expend was significantly less.
And that's a great point, Joe. It's just wild how much baggage you're carrying around with you. Not you, but everybody. It's like you're weighted down by chains and you don't even realize until someone takes the chains off you. It's like, wow, this is me. This is incredible.
Yep.
It almost feels like you've lost weight when you do the flexible steel because you just move so much better.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, it's like wringing water out of a sponge. Like you get rid of all of this excess neuromuscular tension that your body's just holding on to. And you can just move very freely. It was a phenomenal experience. Highly recommend it to anybody that's interested in attending.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's doing really well. We have instructors worldwide, and we're just exploding with it because it gives results.
Yes, it does. I think that was the thing. I think some people, we mentioned a couple, were so surprised by how quickly they got results. And, the example of the guy touching his toes, I think he was, probably in his mid-20s, I think I remember him saying, but he had never touched his toes before that day. And for him to be able to, within 5 to 10 minutes, get down to fingertips, and then with a little bit more work, get his knuckles down to his toes. I mean, that was very impressive, and holding on to it throughout the day. It wasn't something like, he was just tapping down. He was relaxed and in that position.
Yeah, he owned it then.
Right.
Now tell the audience the other side of the coin here, the guys that were super flexible in the toe touch.
Right.
Think about what to them.
I think there's two guys that come to mind. There was one guy at the end that did the splits, that we had some assistants come and kind of give them a little bit of pressure on their feet so that they could get a little bit deeper, but really forcing them to kind of pull themselves into that bottom position using their strength. And then the other one that came to mind was two of the people you brought up that were doing the kicks and how much higher they got.
Yeah. Yep, it's amazing. And we had the one guy there that was very flexible in his toe touch, but he couldn't quite get his elbows to his toes. And we pretty much got him there. His stomach was flat against his knees in the toe touch. The elbows
That's right. Yeah. I think that was some of the other thing too, is that, just the perspective, the shift in perspective when you're doing some of those things. Again, going back to the principles, using your strength, creating space, and spreading the load throughout the body. Like, as you go down and touch your toes, instead of just trying to reach with your arms, forget that for a moment and think about pulling yourself into that bottom position using your abs. And it totally changes the exercise. And I couldn't believe the next day, we weren't doing any quote unquote specific abdominal work, but my abs were sore the next day.
Sure.
So that was great. That was great stuff. It's the focus, the attention to detail, the shift in perspective on doing that stuff. All those little details made a huge difference in, how I'm approaching the flexibility training. And I think another great point that you brought up a couple times throughout the weekend, and I think this is something that we could spend a couple minutes talking about, is you said that, we should be spending, as much time on flexibility work as we do with strength training, if not even more.
Well, yeah, there's another thing that people overlook. They'll throw their flexibility work in after their main training session as kind of an afterthought. And the results show for it. If you treat it as an afterthought, the results are going to be minimum, at best. But if you program it and actually train it as if you were training, just like you're training your deadlift or your squat or whatever powerlifting type training you're doing, or, physical fitness, if you program it, train it, and treat it seriously, you're going to reap the benefits from that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. And that to me was a huge takeaway point there, because I like that made me look back at some of my training and programming recently and realize there's spots where I can insert some of the power stretching either in between sets instead of just waiting towards the end where I'm cooling down and doing it. And, case in point, the example that I shared earlier is a great, way to show that how beneficial that can be.
Definitely. definitely. So you have to take it, you have to program it, you have to be serious about it, and focus on it, make it a priority. If that is one of your goals, it just doesn't come by magic. You have to you treat it, like the rest of your training.
That's
you
right.
Wouldn't just randomly deadlift every once in a while and think you're going to get strong. I don't or that they think it's just something that you're born with. This person's just naturally flexible. Well, no, I didn't do my first splits until I was 40.
Wow.
I wasn't born with it. I was very, very tight. So I had to work on it. And that's one of the reasons that make me a pretty decent coach at it, because it didn't come to me easy.
Right.
It's one thing to be able to do a split or, a toe touch or whatever without even thinking about it. It's quite another thing to be able to work through the process of actually achieving the goal.
Yes.
And then you can teach people for sure.
Yep. Having to work through the sticking points and figure those things out definitely make you have the ability to relate to people and kind of work through those problem areas a little bit more.
And from a trainer's point of view, going through the flexible steel certification, I got a lot of feedback, even just from this last New York cert we did, of how the trainers are able to go into their work the very next day and apply what they learned to their students and their clients, and they're just thrilled about it. So it's gold.
Yes, I can definitely echo those sentiments. It was interesting. I went back in and used that in some of the classes and one-on-one sessions that I had, and the feedback that I got and continue to get. Sometimes it wasn't that day. It was like the next time I saw them, but they would come up to me and be like, I could not believe not only how good I felt at the end of the class, but how much better I felt throughout the rest of my day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that person's going to stick with that trainer.
Right. Right. And they see a very, real benefit to it, and like how much it made like a major impact on the rest of their like health and well-being.
And that's why we're in this. That's why we're into the business of training people, because you get this huge payback of helping people get these results. Yeah. That's where it's at. Yeah,
that's absolutely the most rewarding part about it. It's so much fun to see have those moments.
There's not very, very many other professions where you can have that life-changing effect on people. I mean, it is really cool.
Yes, that's right. I say that all the time. It's like somebody can walk in the door and within 30 to 45 minutes, like completely, shift their perspective for the entire day.
That's huge.
Yes. So one other kind of topic, somewhere we go with this is, let's talk a little bit how this flexible steel can feed into, the two sides of the performance coin. We have tension and relaxation. And then, we talk a lot about, fast and loose type drills, like in between kettlebell swings, but to make sure that we're shaking off that tension, right? So, why is that so important from an athletic performance standpoint, to make sure that we're not going kind of too far to the right, so to speak, in just working on tension all the time and not having enough relaxation in there?
Do you have a martial arts background a little bit, don't you?
No, I do not.
Not at all? Okay. Because what comes to my mind is we used to go to open tournaments back when I was a kid, and there was a certain style of martial arts where they do a kata, which is a prearranged series of movements, right? Mm-hmm. But each move has this complete tension, and it's just sharp and robotic. A lot of power, amazing power, but it's very rigid, which works well when you're doing that type of performance, a kata or a pattern or a form or whatever word you want to use for it. But those guys didn't do well at all when they were actually fighting, when they were sparring, because they carried too much tension.
Right.
If they hit you with one of those first shots, yeah, it's going to hurt. It's going to do damage. But they usually wore themselves out. They were very slow and telegraphic because there was no relaxation phase in it. You know, tense all your muscles as hard as you can and throw a punch.
It's slow.
It's going to be slow and telegraphic, and it's going to be tiring.
Right.
Where if you're just whipping out these snappy punches, there's a burst of tension. There's a wave of relaxation that travels through as the punch is flying through the air. At the moment of impact, there's another burst of tension, and then you're withdrawing the punch. So it's like this explosive move, explosive, and loose again. And that's why we need to practice that relaxation, because athletic movement's not all tension. It can't be. It's a combination of tension and relaxation. And the timing has to be, you know, dead on, spot on. So if you're practicing full tension all the time and you're not washing that shot down with a chaser of relaxation, you're just giving your opponent an extra edge. Athletic movement is a combination of relaxation and tension, and to be able to go back and forth between the two, you have to train it. You have to practice it.
Yes.
So as much time as you put into getting tense for a lift, you need to bounce that again with relaxation practice. And in the StrongFirst, we call it fast and loose. So you're just shaking off the tension, and it also helps recover faster for your next set.
Yes. Now, do you have any other relaxation or like fast and loose drills besides just, you know, shaking the muscles loose, like you're you know, shaking you know, water off a towel or something like that, visualization wise? Is there any other ones that you like to implement?
It could be as easy as shadow boxing, but the ones that I really like to do, especially with beginners, are partner assisted fast and loose moves.
Okay.
Basically, your partner takes your arm, and you're supposed to make your arm completely relaxed and loose and dead, and they shake it and move it up and down and pass it between hands, and then all of a sudden just take their hands away, and you won't believe how many people's arms still sticking out there. They weren't really relaxed. They weren't really fast and loose. They were just kind of faking their way through it. Right. So that type of training is a really good way to train someone to be able to do the fast and loose on their own, because you have to be honest about it.
Yeah.
Same thing with the leg. Have them lay down, you grab the foot, and you just kind of shake it, move it back and forth, and pass it from hand to hand, and kind of hold it in the top hand and drop it to your bottom hand, and they just need to be completely limp and relaxed, and it works well.
That's cool. I like that. That's I'll have to play around with that and put that into some training sessions.
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost like a massage. You know, you're not rubbing their muscles and squeezing the muscles, but just that loose, relaxed feeling is really cool. And once they have that done to them, it's a lot easier, and their own fast and loose practice is a lot more effective.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, because it sounds like because you're kind of getting some external feedback there, it'll be a little bit perhaps quicker to learn it, to pick it up and really let go all the way to totally relax.
Yeah, for sure.
Very sure. Cool.
Like I said, it's a really good way to teach someone that's new to the system.
Yes.
How to do fast and loose.
Yes, I like that. Do you want to talk about your the fighter program that you had written for StrongFirst, the clean and jerk?
Yeah. What I did there is I like the clean and jerk for conditioning a lot, because really, a clean done poorly a jerk done poorly is just a push press, which is a good exercise all by itself. You know, a swing is awesome, but you know, the kettlebell's way out in front of your body. If you move your hips too soon, it could bite you. So you need to be really quite good at swings. And StrongFirst, we teach you how to be good at swings. But I like to use the jerk to condition my fighters. And what we did, Pavel came out with a program a long time ago called the Force Recon training program. And it's basically if you need to have strength and endurance at the same time. There's an A training session and a B training session. A focuses on pure power. B focuses on muscular endurance. And the very first 10 minutes of B is clean and jerks with a 32 kilogram kettlebell for 10 minutes. Oof. And as the program's written, he says, just play it by ear. But I kind of systemize that a little bit more because people aren't real good at playing things by ear. They need more of a path to follow, is my experience. So what we do is we do 5 clean and jerks on the right arm, swing switch, and do 5 clean and jerks on the left arm, every minute on the minute for 10 minutes.
Yeah. 100 reps.
Yeah, so you got 100 reps. And if you can find a bell that you can just make that with and keep the tempo, programming becomes very easy. So let's say that 32 kilogram kettlebell, you can just eke out 5 and 5 every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. So it gives you 100 reps. And we're going to call that a hard training session because it is. You just made it. Mm-hmm. Call that 100%. Now, if you want to cycle this, you can do 80% for a medium training session, and you can do 60% for a light training session. And we just pretty much just mess with the volume. For instance, to get 80%, we do 4 and 4 every minute on the minute. Gives you 80 reps. So the math is really simple. To do the easy training session, you do 3 and 3 every minute on the minute. It gives you 60 reps. Now, once everything's going pretty good, you go for maybe 2 months or 6 weeks, and you're feeling good, you want to test yourself, you try to get 6 and 6 every minute on the minute for 10 minutes. That gives you 120 reps or 120%. If you make that, it's time to up the intensity, grab the next size kettlebell and start over.
Wow.
So, yeah, the programming on it is just beautiful.
Yeah, it's very not easy, simple. It's simple.
Yeah, about it, but it is. Maybe there's someone else out there that can do 6 and 6, more than 6 and 6 on the minute for 10 minutes, but I don't think so. I think that's about as many reps as you can get of clean and jerks in a minute is 12.
Right. Yeah, especially doing it with a swing switch in between there.
Mm-hmm. Now, for fighters, it develops legs and lungs like nobody's business. And you're also, in that compressed feeling during the rack, like someone's trying to bear hug you, so you have to learn how to breathe and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
When you're spread, works really well.
Yeah, spending a lot of time learning to breathe behind the shield.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
And it's a killer, but it only takes 10 minutes. You're done.
Simple and effective.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jon, is there anything else that you want to touch on in terms of kettlebell programming, any other articles that you've written, or anything else to summarize with flexible steel?
Well, what did we talk about last time? We talked a little bit about handstand pushups.
Yes, we did. Yeah, so we talked about that was another article that you had written where you, I believe you had a lot of travel coming up, and so you programmed doing handstand pushups to, because you were working on your military press at the time. Right.
So the deal is I was traveling so much, it was very hard to stay on a strict pressing protocol. Mm-hmm. Just because logistically it was impossible. But a handstand push-up or the bodyweight stuff goes with you so easily. I mean, it's always with you. All you need is a wall to do the wall-assisted handstand push-up. So I started working my way through the rite of passage from Enter the Kettlebell, which is 5 ladders of 5 with a certain size bell. But instead of using bells, I used the handstand push-up. And it started very low, like 1 and 2, 1 and 2, 1 and 2. So three ladders of 2, and eventually worked my way up to 5 of 5. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, when I go back and retest my press, my kettlebell military press, I'm going to be losing starting strength. Because as you know, the handstand push-up starts at the top of your head,
Right.
And you press from where a kettlebell press starts from the rack when the bell's down by your chest. So I was really worried about the range from chest to eyebrow level because I wasn't training that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I got back from my traveling and I actually got hold of a kettlebell, I was amazed because when I hit that sticking point, about by eyebrow level, the bell pretty much just pressed itself. And it's kind of a blinding shot of the obvious. I've been doing handstand push-ups, starting from the sticking point, really. I would lower myself down to the top of my head, and then I would kind of completely try to relax, and then quickly build up tension and press from there again. And it worked well to pretty much eliminate the sticking point of that kettlebell press. So anyone that's having trouble, especially at a sticking point with their press, I recommend just trying. Work your way up gradually through some ladders of the handstand push-up, and you'll be amazed. And if you don't know how to do handstand push-ups, get yourself to the StrongFirst Bodyweight certification.
Yes, it's phenomenal. I've been highly recommend that one as well. It's all of the principles work across all of the different modalities that StrongFirst teaches. So you're just taking those principles and applying them to a different piece of equipment or a different tool, whether that's bodyweight, kettlebell, or barbell.
Yeah, and I think it's overlooked a lot. It seems to me that the SFB, the StrongFirst Bodyweight certification, is kind of overlooked by people, but once they do it, they love it. They're blown away by it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think maybe just the general public thinks that we're teaching people how to do push-ups and, one-leg squats and pull-ups. What's the big deal? The big deal is we're using some of these exercises to teach you the principles of how to get better at whatever you want to do.
Yes. Yeah.
We selected those certain exercises, but they're not all it. The all it is how the progressions on how to get there and the regressions if you can't get there yet, and how to just kind of reverse engineer whatever kind of body weight movement you want to do, or to give yourself that tool when you are traveling or you can't get to the gym. You got something that you can practice every day.
Yeah, and to build on that, John, a couple other things that I would add. Some of the major takeaways I had is that when you strip away kind of any external tool and you're just left with your body, you have to really learn to create that feed forward tension. So as a teacher and then as an athlete, it makes you really kind of have to spend some time to figure some things out. There's some real internal learning that happens there. And for me, that couldn't have been more true because, when I went to the SFB, I didn't get enough depth on my one arm, one leg. And so I had to, submit a video. And so that I went to the cert in May and I didn't get it until August. But my point is that I had to spend a lot of time working on some of my weak points. And I wouldn't have traded that for anything because going back, it taught me so much more about how to identify, a sticking point, or if somebody's having trouble with a certain part, how to work that, how to help them through and coach them through that. Yeah.
Again, after you do that sort of course, you can immediately plug it into your practice and your students' practice. It's gold.
Yeah.
You're walking into the gym, meeting your students, and hey, let's do this, and they're blown away by the progress that they get. It is really cool.
I have a question for you on the handstand push-up before we get too far away from that. So is that something that you think could be programmed in for like a specialized variety day if you are training for, like, say, the StrongFirst Level 2 and you're working on your military press?
Definitely. You don't have to be strictly blocking off, okay, this cycle I'm going to do bodyweight stuff. This next cycle I'm going to do kettlebell stuff. Next cycle I'm going to do barbell stuff. You should think in movements, and you can pick whatever implement you want for that movement, that cycle. So if it's a press, maybe you're doing, barbell presses. Maybe you're doing a kettlebell press. Maybe you're doing a handstand push-up. You can cycle that in. They're all specialized variety for each other. Right. So, you'd have to have the imagination of a doorknob to get bored with this stuff.
That's right. That's a great way to put it.
Just doing things a little bit like that helps break through plateaus as well.
Yeah, and it keeps the mind very fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You mentioned something about you had to train your weakness, and that's an important piece of the puzzle too. Everybody's really excited and they have fun doing something they're good at, but very few people suck it up and work on something they're not good at. And my challenge to people whenever I'm talking to someone is that it's like, find out where your weak link is and make your goal to have that weakness, that weak link, that weak move become your strongest suit.
Right.
And once that becomes your strongest suit, find your next weakest link and go after that. Maintain your strengths, but train your weaknesses. And you can't be beat then.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it was interesting. Something I'll share with you. So my pressing arm for the kettlebell military press is my right arm, but I got my one arm, one leg push up on my left arm, right leg. And so I was thinking about that a lot, and trying to kind of figure out why that is. And so the conclusion that I'm coming to is it actually has a lot to do with all of the years that I was a rower, because I was a sweep rower. So I would rotate out to one side of the boat, and I would really be doing the work or the drive phase of the rowing stroke, pushing more so with my inside leg, my right leg. So my right hip and my right glute, I can really lock down my pelvis. So I think it had a lot less to do with the pressing strength of my left arm and my ability to maintain that tension across my body.
Sure, you got to drive there.
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
John, any other words of wisdom or tips in regards to the any of the bodyweight skills or the military press or the programming?
So I'd like to have people try to get out of their comfort zone. You look at a guy like Bud Jeffries.
Yeah.
He can squat a house, right? But when you look at Bud, it's not that far out of your imagination that this guy's strong enough to squat like that. He's built for it. But then the next second you see him flip over and do handstand push-ups, which he's clearly not built for. And so I'm telling you, people out there, if your favorite implement is a barbell, if you're into barbells, I challenge you to go try to do the bodyweight certification. And if you're into bodyweight stuff, go try the barbell once and see what you think of it. You know what I mean? Get yourself out of that comfort zone and do something that you're really not designed for. Go after that weakness and you'll be amazed.
Yeah, that's a great point, because that's how you're going to make, if you spend some time addressing your weaknesses, you'll really see some new levels of strength coming to light.
Yeah. And it's not fun and it's humbling, but we can all eat a little bit of humble pie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten my one arm, one leg if I didn't have that experience, because it made me really kind of go back and look at my programming and like look at where I was breaking down when executing that skill. And so I had to do some, video work and look at like, where I had my sticking point, but also looked where I was losing tension in terms of energy leakages, and where I was losing balance, like as I went further down into the hole for the push-up. So those types of things, like you said, that could be applied to any skill, but that's super important to put those things under review. And it always helps to have, somebody like yourself take a look and get a coach's eye on you.
Definitely. It fast tracks things, even if you video yourself, you can fool yourself pretty easily.
Yes.
It's hard to look at your own image with strangers' eyes.
That's right. Let me see if I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. No, I think that's it. Is there anything else that you wanted to include, Jon?
Not off the top of my head right now. I think we've kind of talked our way through several different topics, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Okay, so before I let you off the hook, we got to move into the rapid fire.
That's right. I remember that from the last time we tried this.
Okay. First question. So, Jon, given all of your knowledge and experience at this point in your life, if you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice, what would you say to yourself 15 years ago?
Rapid fire. Okay. I think I would probably take the same advice I just gave to your listeners. I wish someone would have told me, hey, spend some time on your weaknesses. It's real fun to train those strengths, do things you're good at, but, you're only going to get so much better. If you can patch up those weak points, let you be unstoppable. And man, if I would have known this stuff, if the kettlebell world and the flexible steel world would have been around when I was in my 20s, who knows, who knows what could have happened. It would be, I don't know what could have possibly happened. It would have been awesome. I was just at Cole Summers High School in Winnipeg, and think about being a high school kid having access to that kind of knowledge. I mean, it'd be life-changing, like we spoke of.
He's such a good guy.
Yeah, definitely. So practice your weak points. Get out of your comfort zone.
Awesome. If you had to pick one strength training exercise as your favorite, what would it be?
I think I'm going to have to say the get up.
Excellent.
Covers everything. Right?
That's right. Do you have a favorite training session that you like to do, like a staple?
I like pressing a lot, so I like doing ladders of presses. Single bell, double bell, stacked bells are really cool.
Oh wow! How do you get the setup for the stacked bells?
Okay, so let's say you have you don't have a heavy kettlebell. You just have a 24 and maybe a 12 kilogram bell. Mm-hmm. You put the 12 kilogram bell on the outside and the front. You reach down, grab both handles with two hands, cheat clean them into position so when they're on top, smaller bell is going to be sitting on the bigger bell, and you press right out of that. And it makes your pressing groove stellar because you can't get out of the groove or it's, the bells wobble.
Oh, wow.
And you have to just crush these two handles.
Right, so you really have to focus on the grip strength as well. So do you think there would be value in doing that, maybe with some lighter bells in terms of like less than your 1 rep max that you're going for, just to work on, like you said, the groove and the grip strength?
Oh, definitely. You can do ladders with it too. I mean, it's awesome. You only clean it once, you
Right.
know, that, but your groove has to be just stellar. And then when you dump them, you just kind of fan them out like cards so that,
Right.
you know, they fall. It's good to train outside with that one. But yeah, I did a lot of stacked presses. It's a good time.
Very cool. Very cool. How has your training changed today compared to 15 years ago?
Well, I'm not competing anymore. I'm not fighting anymore. I'm still fighting the gym, but so what I usually focus on is what I'm teaching next. If I'm going to be doing a flexible steel certification, I'm working more on stretching things. If I'm doing a kettlebell certification, then I'm at level 1. I'd be focusing on those, you know, basic 6 moves. Level 2, be focusing on jerks and bent presses and that kind of thing. If it's a bodyweight cert, then I'm switching to bodyweight stuff. So I'm kind of letting work dictate what my training is.
Got it. Awesome. Awesome. That's good. But like you said, that's a great example of the specialized variety right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just done for me. It's just however the calendar comes up. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm going to jump between level 1 and level 2 at the domes. Right now I'm working a lot on kettlebell skills. And then shortly after that, I'm teaching a bodyweight cert in Seoul. And I'll switch to pistols and push-ups. And I just came off of pistols and push-ups because we just did a bodyweight cert in Winnipeg like 2 weekends ago. Excellent.
Excellent. Have you ever had an injury? And if so, how did that injury affect your training?
Yeah. I had a pretty sore back for quite a while. Several different things contributed to it, but the day that it really went bad was I was sparring with a student and I was going to throw an axe kick. And an axe kick is where you lift your leg up over your head and you're coming down and you're trying to hit the other guy on the top of the head or the collarbone. Well, I threw it and I knew he was going to walk right into it. It was just, and I couldn't pull it very easily because, you know, you got a heavy leg coming down. It takes a lot to stop that. Normally you pour the coals to it and hit the guy pretty hard, but it was a student. So I jerked my back to try to control the descent of the kick a little bit, and back spasmed on me. I finished the class pretending it didn't hurt, but the next day I could hardly walk, and that took a long time to fix, but kettlebells pretty much did it for me.
Awesome. Well, glad to hear that you put that one behind you and you're doing great now.
Yeah, that was ugly.
What's one thing that high school athletes should be doing more of to complement their training and their health?
They should be doing less of barbell curls. Really, if we got a high school athlete, if we could train them and have them do the simple stuff,
right?
The big bang exercises like deadlifts, like military press, like squats, taught well, kettlebell swings, get-ups, they would have this huge advantage over the people that are doing, you know, the crazy stuff, the bodybuilding stuff, the things
beach muscles,
the beach muscles, and being trained how to actually do the squat or do the deadlift properly or do the kettlebell swing properly.
Right.
I've been in gyms and I've watched trainers train these kids, these high school kids. One comes to mind. Their knees were caving in. They were turning. She was pressing front squats. And the knees were caving in. The ankles were caving in. The back was rounding. And the trainer's going, yeah, that's pretty good. Let's add some weight now. And I'm thinking, I had to bite my tongue. But it's like, God, this poor girl would be better off just watching YouTube.
Oh, man. Oh, boy.
So, yeah, it would be awesome if every high school weight room was like Cole Summers, like, you know, had a professional in there that bothered to take the time and the training and works with the kids. And it's hard. It's hard to convince people to do things right. They get chasing weight.
Yeah, and they're not patient.
No, let's do this right first, because, in the weight room, usually people are in the weight room to make something that they're doing, some other sport better.
Right.
The weights aren't an end to themselves. So as a strength coach, as a flexibility coach, the first thing I want is to do no harm. I don't need any non-contact injuries in my fighters. There's enough of that happening in the ring.
Right.
So we want to improve them. So form is where it's at. Form and basics.
Excellent. What's your best tip to improve recovery after a training session?
Try to relax and go do something completely different. What I like to do in the morning when the weather's decent out is just go for a long walk. And throughout that walk, there'll be some different stations. You do some easy incline push-ups, some easy bodyweight, assisted squats, things that are so pathetically easy that it's embarrassing to even let people see you doing it. But it's active recovery.
Right.
And that's what you need. Those little things that are easy. One, it relieves stress. Two, you're moving, you're getting the blood flowing, but it's not really training. Mm-hmm. And it just kind of clears your mind too. So, yeah, like an active recovery walk with some light calisthenics put into it. It's a great way to recover.
Excellent. 3 more. What's your favorite meal?
I like Korean food a lot. I like galbi.
Nice.
That would be my favorite meal. There's the world's best galbi house in Seoul called So Galbi. They should sponsor StrongFirst, because every certification we fill that place, and it's just a small little restaurant. It's kind of a tent right on the road. You sit in these little stools. They have the grills. The charcoal comes out. You cook your own meat, and it's amazing. So anyone that's worked in StrongFirst Korea or SF Korea, I've taken them to So Galbi many, many times.
Nice.
And everybody's loved it.
Awesome. What's one book everyone should read?
Flexible Steel.
Yes, agreed. Who have you studied, or do you continue to study in your career to improve and get better?
I study from every different kind of source I can find, and it doesn't have to be specifically geared towards strength training. You can learn things from pretty much anyone. Mm-hmm. I like to, if you can spend time with someone that's a world champion, and it doesn't matter if they're a world champion dog sled racer, if they're a world champion, whatever. If you spend some time with that person, you can learn a lot from them. So there's not just one person that I could pick out and say this is who I'm learning from. I try to find a lesson in anyone I can and apply it to a certain situation. And it might be something totally unrelated, but it's like, okay, this is how this guy communicates this. I can use that. I can use that in my own career. So there's some, strange sources out there where you would never think that you would get inspiration from. But I think you can learn from everyone. Everyone has weak points and strong points.
Absolutely. Well, Jon, that takes us through to the end of the interview. So this has been an absolute blast. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, it was great talking to you again, Joe. Looking forward to seeing you more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Just hang on the line. Let me give you a proper goodbye off air.
Okay, thanks.
I hope you enjoyed that brand new episode of the Leo Training Podcast. If you love the content, please take a moment of your time, head on over to iTunes, and drop in a 5-star review. The link to iTunes will be in the write-up for this episode on my website, or take a moment and share it on your favorite social media networks such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or Instagram. And be sure to tune in next week when I have another brand new episode. My guest is 3-time Olympic gold medalist, rowing legend, Drew Ginn.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.